G L O
C
O
Global Radio.
Hey Ryan, I have heard that you guys joined a cultural trip during the semester break. How was it?
Yeah, Teresa, we had a trip to Meizhou and Singapore, 4 days for each destination.
Meizhou, where is that? I have never heard of it before. Why did you go there?
Oh, you see, the trip was funded by the TKP Foundation as well as the radio team, and there is some relationship between TKP and Meizhou. That's why we had a chance to go there and have a look.
Relationship? What do you mean? Like, he grew up and spent his childhood there.
You're right, Teresa. TKP was born in Meizhou and he had made a lot of contribution to his birthplace. For instance, we had a chance to visit a secondary school in Meizhou, and the campus and the facilities are funded by him.
Oh, you visited a secondary school there. How was it? Did you meet the local students?
Absolutely, yes. We made presentations to introduce them some Hong Kong local cultures and walked around the campus. I think the campus there is similar to ours. Although they are just secondary school students, their campus and facilities are huge, not to mention they have their own hostel.
Oh my, I wish I had a chance to visit there one day. What was the most unforgettable thing?
Unforgettable thing, you ask? Let me ask you a question, Teresa. When you were in secondary school, how would you spend your leisure time? I mean, where would you go with your friends after school?
Well, I used to go to the mall, maybe do some shopping or have supper with friends after school. Sometimes we would go to the movies.
So can you imagine that you're living in a place where there is no karaoke, no movie theaters, or not many big shopping malls to go to? The only relaxing thing you can do after school is to go to the park and have a walk with friends, spending your leisure time out in the rural areas with nature. That's all. How would you feel about that?
That sounds less eventful. But I guess it's more down to earth. Honestly, I'd find it a bit boring though. Same scenery and activities every day is just so not fun.
That's the issue. To us, it's definitely a boring life, but to them, that's the only fruitful thing they can do. To my surprise, when I asked them, they said they don't have any chances to travel around other places in China. I mean, I thought it's normal to travel around just other provinces near them, but they said they just don't have the chance.
Wow, you look so pensive. This trip surely enlightened you, huh?
Indeed, I just hate it when people keep complaining about not having this or not having that, while we never think about the fact that there are places where life is so simple.
Oh, well, I believe we should be satisfied with what we have, cherish everything and not be materialistic. Were there other students from HSMC besides anyone in our team? And did you make friends with them?
Yes, of course. Apart from 4 members in our team, there were other students who received the chance to go for various reasons. Some of them were winners of the drama competition, and some of them were winners of the speech competition.
That sounds really fun. Do you think I'd have the chance of joining the cultural trip in the future?
Yeah, possibly.
Cool, I bet you have taken lots of photos. Can you show me?
Sure, I got some great photos on my phone. So, yeah, this is...
Hi, Anna. I haven't seen you for ages. How are you doing?
Hi, Kira. I'm very well. I've been away on a cultural trip.
Glad to hear it. How was the cultural trip?
We have been to Meizhou and Singapore. I really wish that you could have been there since all of us had a good time. With all the transport and accommodation subsidized by the TKP Foundation, as well as the activities arranged by the teachers from the English department. We had a very fantastic and incredible experience during the trip.
So, what kind of activities did you have? Did you go to some tourist spot to get a deeper understanding of Meizhou?
Sure we did. For the first 4 days of our cultural trip, we visit Meizhou in China. Meizhou is not a typical tourist town.
Why, there is a Chinese conventional saying, the paradise in the sky is heaven, and the paradise on the ground is Suzhou and Hangzhou. Is Meizhou also a paradise for food, view, and people?
No, that saying refers to the metropolis, which is easily accessible to tourists. So the virtues of food, view, and people there can be explored and discovered by the visitors. However, the transportation of Meizhou is not as convenient as many big cities like Hong Kong and Singapore. Hence, it's comparatively less famous for tourism.
Whoa, I see. Is it full of Hakka people? Because actually, I'm a half Hakka person as my father come from Meizhou.
Really? Yes, there are lots of Hakka people. We enjoyed Hakka culture in Meizhou without killing for hours, and I fully enjoyed the time that I spent on the trip.
I see. There must be some historic and prominent Hakka buildings, right?
Yep, we visit Kayla's house and Tai An building to explore Hakka culture.
Whoa, it sounds great! So what kind of Hakka features do the two buildings have? And how long have they been built?
Kayla's house, which was built nearly 400 years ago, is a rare, unique round building in Guangdong province. Tai An building is another kind of tulou. The most interesting thing for me is the design of Wei Long House, which is highly associated with feng shui. According to Hakka culture, a pool must be built in front of the entrance of the Wei Long House in order to trap the spirit of the dragon, which can bring luck and fortune to the residents.
Experiencing a rural setting will definitely expose you to many marvelous things of the small town life. After visiting Meizhou, where did you go?
Indeed, we have been to Singapore. Meizhou and Singapore have relatively different cultures. Singapore is a small, wealthy, and cultural city-state. The urban development in Singapore is properly arranged.
So, did you discover something which is connected to Hakka culture in Singapore?
Of course, the Hakka community is the fourth largest Chinese dialect group in Singapore. We dined out and tried the Hakka signature dishes in a Hakka restaurant.
Oh my god, how was it?
Well, compared to Hakka cuisine in Meizhou, it was less oily and salty. For me, I prefer the one in Singapore.
Whoa, that sounds great! You make me want to go to Singapore to find out which version of Hakka food is my favorite.
Hi, Dawn.
Hi, Rick. How was your Lunar New Year holiday?
Great. I visited my relatives and enjoyed my holiday. I know you had a cultural trip to Meizhou and Singapore. Did you enjoy it?
Of course, I did. There was beautiful scenery and delicious Hakka food. But the most important point is I could go with my friends.
I've never been to Meizhou. Can you briefly introduce it?
Meizhou is considered the capital of the Hakkas, so you can see the traditional Hakka language, architecture, and dishes. Also, it's the birthplace of Mr. TKP, who helped fund the trip.
I see. Hakka culture. What impressed you most in Meizhou?
Undoubtedly, the traditional buildings. I remember we visited a tulou called Lou.
I've seen photos of tulous. A tulou is built in a round shape, right?
Yes, but do you know why it was built with this design?
Let me guess. For protection? This round-shaped building only had one entrance, so it is highly defensible to attacks from the outside.
Haha, not bad. Not only for defensive reasons, it also represented Hakka people's notions of unity and satisfaction.
I see. Interesting. Then, how did you feel when you walked inside Lou?
While wandering around the floors, I was so excited because it was full of cultural riches. Closing my eyes, I could imagine how delightfully the whole family lived together in the past.
It sounds great. I want to go there once.
Yes, the scenery in Meizhou was good too. On the second day of the trip, we visited Pink Mountain Terrace. The terrace landscape with the beautiful blue sky made me feel calm and refreshed from the busy days in Hong Kong.
That's something we can't find in Hong Kong.
Yes, so it was a valuable chance to experience such beautiful scenery.
Then, how was the trip to Singapore? Had you been there before the trip?
I've been there to Singapore once 10 years ago.
Really? It should have changed a lot in 10 years. Anything special in Singapore? How did you link to Hakka culture?
I didn't have much memory of my previous Singapore trip because I was so small at the time. This time, I found that Singapore was very similar to Hong Kong, but there was much more greenery. I really liked the living environment there. Surprisingly, I could never imagine that Hakka culture has a link with Singapore. You know, I found Tulou.
Seriously? Is it the same as the one in Meizhou?
No, the Tulou in Singapore is very modern, so I think it was newly built.
Modern Tulou? I can't really picture it.
Don't worry, let me show you the photo.
Oh, I see. I think I prefer 花二楼.
Yeah, I have the same thing as you. Although the designs of the two Tulous are the same, the Tulou in Singapore lacks the vintage style.
Anyway, I believe you definitely enjoyed your trip. Thanks for sharing.
Happy New Year, Cameron. I heard that you have been away this Lunar New Year holiday.
Yes, I have a special and hot New Year holiday this time. I went to Singapore.
I'm so jealous of you. I just stayed in Hong Kong and went to different relatives' homes to get red packets. How about you? What did you do in Singapore?
My stay in Singapore was actually a cultural trip. It was a week long, and we got to visit a few tourist spots like Universal Studios and Little India, apart from visiting the Hakka Association.
Oh, that sounds great. As I know, people in Singapore are mostly Chinese, with Malaysians, Indians, and others, of course. So I'm guessing they celebrate Lunar New Year as well. What did you learn during the trip, like in terms of the differences between Singapore and Hong Kong?
First of all, yes, they do celebrate Lunar New Year as well. In fact, I found that they have a flower market in Chinatown. It's as festive as it is in Hong Kong. Now that I think about it, I think Singapore kept more of the traditional Chinese elements in comparison. Singaporeans are really proud of their roots. For your information, Hakka is the fourth largest group if you try to trace back where the Chinese in Singapore are really from. But of course, that is a few generations back. Almost all of their children are born and raised in Singapore.
I see. So are the people nice there?
Oh yeah, they're more than friendly. In fact, I have a few friends who are Singaporeans and others who are in Singapore on exchange, so I got to join them for dinner during our free time and visited the National University of Singapore with them. The tour guide made a very good impression on the first day. We joined the walking tour along the riverfront right after we settled down in the hotel. The way he was so animated in telling us about the history and culture of Singapore made it really captivating. Usually, you would expect to be bored from this kind of thing, but that wasn't the case at all. In fact, he bought us all ice cream served in bread and waffles.
Wow, that was so nice of him. So, were there any other experience that stood out for you?
That's a tough one, because the whole trip was unforgettable. We learned a lot from the people we encountered and from the places we visited. But if I have to pick, it would have to be the dinner with two locals who are also Amy's friends.
What's so special about it?
Their background is very intriguing, not to mention the fact that the whole night was packed with funny and interesting conversation. So Eric is a local Singaporean serving in the Navy, and Rosita is a local Hong Konger who migrated there after getting married to Eric. Being final year students, we just couldn't help but ask about the working environment there. At one point, we brought up this issue of lots of young people in Hong Kong wanting to migrate. When we asked about the situation in Singapore, surprisingly he replied that even though they travel a lot to get away from this tiny country, people usually choose to stay living in Singapore. However, one thing we do have in common is that people from both places complain a lot.
Aha! Anyway, I think it is safe to say that both of us had a fruitful Chinese New Year holiday. At least we can't complain since it is still the beginning of the semester.